She thought it was hilarious to pull a prank on me during my birthday party, handing me a box that contained divorce papers. The entire room erupted in laughter. I simply leaned forward and blew out the candles on my cake. 2 days later, she received an envelope from my attorney. A man's 40th birthday is meant to be a milestone, a moment for reflection, a celebration of everything you've achieved. My 40th, which happened last Saturday, was unquestionably a turning point. It was the day I finally understood that my wife of 10 years didn't merely lack respect for me, she genuinely loathed me. And it was also the day I made the decision to give her a taste of her own medicine. Let me set the stage for you. My name is David, and I run a commercial real estate business. It's a high-pressure, high-reward industry, and I've been very successful at it. My wife, Emily, used to work as an art gallery curator. These days, in her own words, she curates our life. In reality, that translates to spending her days doing yoga, enjoying long, leisurely lunches with her equally unemployed friends, and spending my money. For a long time, I didn't mind. I loved her. I took pride in being able to provide a lifestyle where she never had to worry about working. But over the past few years, something shifted. Her gratitude slowly turned into a deep, corrosive sense of entitlement. My role in her eyes changed from partner to provider, from husband to nothing more than a walking, talking ATM. The jokes at my expense, always delivered in front of her friends, became more frequent and increasingly vicious. She mocked my taste in movies, ridiculed my so-called boring hobbies like fishing, and even made fun of how I dressed. To her, I was just the simple, unsophisticated man who bankrolled her extravagant lifestyle, and she resented me for it. I'm not a pushover. I pushed back. We had massive, explosive arguments knocked down, drag-out fights that left us both exhausted. Each one would end with her in tears, accusing me of being a bully, of not being able to take a joke. Then she'd give me the silent treatment for a week, and I, like a complete fool, would eventually cave just to restore some peace in my own home. I knew our marriage was in serious trouble. I even suggested we try marriage counseling. She laughed right in my face. "We don't need a shrink, David," she sneered. "We just need you to lighten up." So for my 40th birthday, she decided to lighten me up. She threw a big party at our house. My house, an important detail. All our friends were there. On the surface, it was a fantastic evening. Great food, great music. Everyone seemed to be having a good time. Then came the cake and the presents. I sat at the head of the dining table with a massive, absurd cake in front of me, its 40 candles flickering. Everyone gathered around singing, "Happy Birthday." For a brief moment, I felt genuinely happy. I even allowed myself to believe, just for a second, that maybe things between us could get better. Then Emily emerged from the kitchen holding a single, beautifully wrapped gift box. "I have one more present for you, honey," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This one's from me." She placed the box in front of me. It was surprisingly heavy. I looked up at her and saw that familiar, unsettling glint in her eye, the one I'd learned to associate with impending drama. Behind her stood her trio of mean girl friends, the same ones I'd always despised, phones already out, ready to record. I opened the box. Nestled inside layers of tissue paper was a thick leather-bound folder. I flipped it open. The first page was a professionally printed cover sheet from the law offices of Sterling and Finch. Below that, in bold, unmistakable letters, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." It was a full, legally formatted set of divorce papers, complete with both our names, addresses, and every other personal detail. She'd actually gone to a lawyer and had these drawn up as a joke. I just stared at them. The room fell silent. Then I heard a snicker first from one of her friends, then another, and within seconds, the entire room, especially her side of it, burst into loud, cruel laughter. They thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever witnessed. I looked up at Emily. She was beaming, wearing a triumphant smile, clearly basking in the approval of her friends. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at them, soaking in their laughter like it was applause. I didn't say a word. I just stared at the papers, then at her, laughing at my expense. I glanced at the 40 candles on my birthday cake, took a deep breath, leaned forward and blew them all out. I made a wish, a very specific one. Then I stood up and smiled. Not a fake smile, a real, genuine one. "Great joke, honey," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "You really got me. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I'm going to go get us some more champagne." I walked out of the room and didn't look back. The party was over. My marriage was over. And my wife had just handed me the most perfect birthday gift imaginable. The ironclad, undeniable justification I needed to dismantle her entire world. Update 1. The rest of the party was a masterclass in acting on my part. I returned with the champagne, laughed along with everyone, and played the role of the good-natured husband who could take any joke, no matter how cruel. Emily and her friends were ecstatic. They believed they'd once again proven that I was the boring, predictable guy who'd just roll over and accept whatever humiliation they dished out. What they didn't realize was that they were celebrating their own downfall. As soon as the last guest left around 2 a.m., I went straight to my office. I still had the box with the divorce papers. I pulled them out and examined them closely. They were real. She had actually paid a lawyer to draft them. The level of premeditation was staggering. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my desk and began making a list. My revenge couldn't be emotional or impulsive. It had to be cold, calculated, and financially devastating. She had turned our marriage into a punchline. Now, I was going to make her entire life the joke. On Monday morning, I put my plan into motion. First, I called my lawyer, not just any attorney, but Diana, the most ruthless divorce lawyer in the city, known for leaving scorched earth in her wake. I told her the whole story and emailed her the photos and videos her friends had so eagerly recorded of the prank. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, she simply said, "Oh, we're going to have fun with this." Second, I hired a private investigator. I gave him one target: Chloe, Emily's best friend and the ringleader of her little clique. I had a hunch that Chloe's seemingly perfect life wasn't as flawless as she pretended. I told the PI to dig deep. Third, I called my bank. I had multiple joint accounts and credit cards with Emily. Over the next hour, I systematically withdrew my half of the funds from every shared account and canceled every credit card that bore her name. Her financial lifeline, which of course was me, was instantly severed. My final move that morning was the most satisfying of all. Emily owned a ridiculously expensive show horse. Her pride and joy, her ultimate status symbol. The horse was boarded at an exclusive equestrian club, and the monthly fees were astronomical. Naturally, they were all paid by me on a credit card I had just canceled. I drove out to the stable and found the owner, a woman I'd met a few times before. I explained the situation. My wife and I were separating, and I would no longer be covering the horse's expenses. I reminded her that, per our agreement, she would need to contact the legal owner, Emily, to arrange future payments or make arrangements for the horse's removal. The woman was sympathetic but firm. Business was business. She promised to reach out to Emily that very day. I went home and waited. The first sign that the shockwave had hit came around noon, a frantic text from Emily. My card was just declined at Neiman Marcus. What's going on? I didn't reply. An hour later, another message. The stable just called me. They said you're not paying for Star anymore. Is this a joke? Because it's not funny, David. Still, I said nothing. I just sat in my office, staring at the box of divorce papers she'd given me. She stormed into the house around 4 p.m., her face twisted in fury. "David, what the hell have you done?" I looked up from my computer. "I'm just following your lead, honey," I said calmly. "You wanted a divorce. I'm just getting the ball rolling. I thought you'd be pleased." "That was a prank," she shrieked. "A joke. You know I didn't mean it." "Didn't I?" I asked. I stood and walked over to her. "You went to a lawyer, Emily. You had official documents drafted. You planned this with your friends. You filmed it. That's not a joke. That's a dress rehearsal. And you know what? It convinced me. You were right all along. We should get a divorce." "You can't do this," she cried. "I can," I said, "and I am. My lawyer will be sending a formal response to your petition tomorrow, to the very law firm you so thoughtfully named in your joke. I suggest you find a way to pay for your own legal fees, because I won't be. And I suggest you figure out how to pay for your horse, your car, and your lunches, because the Bank of David is officially closed. I turned and walked back to my office, closing the door behind me. I could hear her screaming and throwing things in the living room. It was the sound of a woman who had just realized the joke had always been on her. Update 2. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal strategy and Emily's rapidly escalating desperation. My lawyer, Diana, was a shark in the courtroom. She filed a counterpetition for divorce on the grounds of extreme emotional cruelty. Her star evidence? The very videos of my birthday party, conveniently captured by Emily's own friends. Diana told me the judge was not amused by the prank. Emily's life began to collapse at an astonishing pace. With her credit cards canceled and her bank account emptied, she was suddenly broke. The equestrian club gave her 1 week to either pay thousands in back fees, or they would sell her horse to recoup their losses. Her car, leased in my name, was repossessed from her parents' driveway, where she'd been forced to move back in. And her so-called friends? The ones who had laughed so hard at my expense? They vanished overnight. Funny how quickly people disappear when the person footing the bill for champagne brunches is no longer paying. Then came the private investigator's report, and it was even better than I'd hoped. Chloe, Emily's maid of honor and the leader of her clique, was having an affair with Steve, the husband of another woman in their friend group. The PI had photos, hotel receipts, text messages, the whole package. I didn't act on the information right away. I just held on to it. It was my ace in the hole. The final confrontation came about a month after the party, during a mandatory settlement conference with our lawyers. Emily and I sat on opposite sides of a long, polished conference table. Over the past month, she'd tried to smear my reputation, telling anyone who would listen that I was an abusive, controlling monster with no sense of humor. Her lawyer opened with a series of outrageous demands. She wanted the house, half of my business, and lifelong alimony. When he finished, Diana simply smiled. "That's a very impressive work of fiction," she said coolly. Then she laid out our position. Emily would receive nothing, not the house, not a dime of my business. In fact, we were demanding she reimburse me for her share of our joint debts, which, without my income, were now entirely her burden. Her lawyer scoffed. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds," Diana replied, her voice like ice, "that your client entered this marriage under fraudulent pretenses, and on the grounds of her well-documented history of cruelty and infidelity." "Infidelity?" her lawyer asked, clearly confused. "There are no allegations of infidelity in your petition." "Not on my client's part," Diana said. "But we do have some very interesting information about your client's social circle." That's when I made my move. I looked directly at Emily. "I know about Chloe and Steve," I said quietly. The color drained from her face. Chloe was her closest confidant, the alibi for countless shopping sprees and late-night girls' nights. Steve was married to Amanda, another one of Emily's best friends. "If this goes to court," I continued, "your friends will be subpoenaed. They'll have to testify under oath about the affair, about the prank, about everything." "Is that really a can of worms you want to open, Emily? Are you willing to destroy your entire life and the lives of your friends just to take a piece of mine?" She just stared at me, mouth agape. She glanced at her lawyer, who now looked at her with dawning horror. "Or," I said, leaning forward, "you can sign the papers. Walk away with exactly what you brought into this marriage nothing, and we can both move on. The choice is yours." Final update. It's been 6 months. The divorce was finalized just 2 weeks after that meeting. She signed the papers. She had no other option. The threat of mutual assured destruction was the only language she truly understood. From what I've heard, her life is now a complete and utter disaster. As I anticipated, news of Chloe's affair eventually leaked. The friend group imploded in spectacular fashion. Amanda, the wronged wife, filed for divorce and stripped her husband of everything he owned. Chloe is now a social pariah, and Emily, abandoned by both of her closest friends, is entirely alone. She was forced to sell her horse. The equestrian club auctioned it off, and I heard it went for a fraction of what I'd originally paid. She's still living with her parents and working a low-level job she despises. The carefully curated life of perfection she'd built was nothing more than a house of cards, and all it took was one small push to bring it all crashing down. I saw her a few weeks ago. I was doing a routine spot check at one of my restaurants when I spotted her on a date with some slick, phony-looking guy. She saw me. The look on her face was a potent mix of fear and pure, unfiltered hatred. She and her date left within minutes. In the end, my revenge wasn't about the money, the house, or even the horse. It was about stripping her of her power. Her power came from her social standing, her friendships, her ability to manipulate people. All I did was hold up a mirror and show her, and everyone else, exactly who she really was. A cruel, entitled bully who treated her husband's love and respect as a joke. She thought it would be funny to hand me divorce papers as a prank. In the end, I was the one who handed them to her for real. She believed she could walk away from our marriage any time she wanted. But I was the one who walked away first. She thought she was in control. But in the end, the only thing she controlled was her own spectacular, self-inflicted downfall. My life now is quiet, peaceful, and entirely, completely mine.